DTM in 1992 was special. It's been one of the few times in history where the legendary trio of Mercedes, BMWs and Audis raced all three against each other. It should have been a battle of a century, a battle of German giants. However, as it is tradition in racing, things didn't go as planned. You know, when sometimes the rules don't change for a long time, for you as a team it means one essential thing. It will be a very competitive year because the teams use that time without a change for leveling with the top. So you have to find that gray zone in the rule books. You have to find the slightest and the pettiest details that other teams just simply overseen. Basically, from the start of 1984, the rules didn't change, and that's why all teams decided to scratch every single part of their cars to the absolute limit. Mercedes bring their latest version of a legendary E190 in its iteration of Evo 2, the car that year before won Constructor Championship and proved to be capable of being fast in any conditions, easily set up for any circuit in DTM's calendar, and with its high-revving 4-cylinder E190 was still a reliable choice. Mercedes team also bet on safety in drivers department, and they put their beliefs into experienced drivers of Klaus Ludwig, Kurt Timm, future star Bert Schneider or Roland Asch. But on the other hand, we had the uncompromised and even more legendary BMW E30 M3. Even the fact Mercedes won Constructor Championship a year before, E30 drivers were most of the times capable of finding a little better pace in their cars, even though they were less powerful. However, many drivers claim that without any power steering or any electronics, M3s were sometimes almost frustrating to drive. Although that still doesn't change the fact that BMW had a strong lineup for 92 season, and with another future legends of Johnny Cecotto or Joachim Winkelhock, the goal was straightforward, trying to secure a third title for almost retiring E30 and finally beating their biggest opponent of the last decade. However, that was not Mercedes or any other satellite teams with their heavily modified Fords. That was actually Audi with their little bit shady V8 Quattro. Now, Audi V8 Quattro was controversial from the first glance. While Mercedes and BMW made basically homologation specials just for the sheer purpose of aligning with the rules, Audi just used their luxury limousine for racing, basically a predecessor of their more commonly known A8. And the rules were not against, there was no limit in displacement or number of cylinders. You just needed to build at least 5,000 road legal cars in order to enter a DTM championship. However, this almost a bizarre move totally paid off. With its all-wheel drive, heavy chassis and a big power of that V8, Audi's dominated in corner exits, and they were fast on straights. They claimed 2 consecutive drivers' championships, and they actually became the first brand which achieved such a thing in DTM. Now, this brings a question. Why others haven't tried the same thing? Why not to use more power, even for sacrificing some time in corners? Well, the whole origin of DTM was hidden in small and light cars, and basically no one else was using the all-wheel drive in the start of 1990s. No one had the real experience with this technology, and building a totally new 5,000 cars for entering the championship again was just an economic suicide for BMW or Mercedes. However, the whole situation about Audi became even more hot when in the spring of 92 they were accused for using billet steel crankshaft. Now, what is this about? Well, Group A rules are saying that you must use the same crankshaft for racing that you're using in your production vehicle. So every team is obligated to use the same engine components as you're using in normal road legal cars. And Audi was fulfilling these rules seasons before. However, billet steel is an exclusive racing material which does not appear in their luxury limo. Fortunately for Audi, these were still just complaints, and Audi managed to keep it under wraps. And with the fact that E190s and E30s were almost retiring, it looked like we will be witnessing a third consecutive title for Audi, which would mean they would totally rewrite history books of DTM. No one managed to make a title-winning car for 3 seasons. However, the start of the season went different than expected. First round was sent in April for Zolder, and who knows Zolder also know how unforgiving this place is. It's a series of fast corners, tight corners, jumps and very little potential for overtakes. It's a circuit where you're rewarded for your patience and making a move in the right times on the right place. And surprisingly, Surprisingly, Kurt's team with his Mercedes claimed the first and dominant double victory. But if someone thinks that Zoller is unforgiving, well, I shall introduce you to Nürburgring Nordschleife, series of endless corners and jumps on narrow 20 km green hell. On paper, Nordschleife in perfect sunny conditions should have been suited more for Mercedes and BMWs. And they were definitely fast, outpacing any Audi except their hugely experienced Franks Biela. But in the second race, and after a long fight with BMW, Roland Asch claimed his first victory, and again for Mercedes. Wurnstorf Airfield was a total demonstration of Mercedes power, and it became clear that new evolution of E90 was the strongest machine on the 92 grid. But then and finally, DTM calendar brought us to Avos speed circuits in Berlin, the track that should have suited Audi perfectly. It is basically a context of two very long straights and crushing your engine to the absolute limit. So Audi could use their power for top speeds and better grip in corner exits. No, Mercedes with roughly 60 horsepower less dominated Avus, and Bernd Schneider won his first and also the same day his second race. Audis simply didn't have the expected performance. Or maybe they tried to sandbag races in the start of the season for calming the whole situation down. Well, even that didn't save them. After 5th race in Hockenheim, BMW and Mercedes put a formal protest against Audi for using non-legal performance parts on their engines. The crankshaft itself looked on the first glance the same, and Audi was defending themselves with an argument that this is the same part which they used in previous seasons. But still, DTM Directorate disqualified Audi from already raced events, which Audi claimed as an unfair treatment, and they voluntarily withdraw from the championship by themselves. And before the 6th race of 92 season, all V8 Quattros disappeared from the racing grid. It was not a move by Mercedes from desperation or some sort of a protest against dominance, because the 5th and the last race when Audi attended, Mercedes actually rewrote history books when the first race was won by the only female in DTM's history, Ellen Lohr. Second one was held by Roland Asch, and the driver standings after this race was inclined to Klaus Ludwig. 6th race was again on Nürburgring, and both races were held by Klaus Ludwig again. However, then a fast Nürburgring gave a BMW at least a drop of hope. With a circuit suited for agile and capable E30s with attention to good corner abilities, and two different drivers were able to secure a win. First one for Johan Winkelhock and second for Steve Soper. Czech Grand Prix was marked by double win for Klaus Ludwig, and then he did the same thing in Default's Hairfield. It became clear, especially in points, that this season is in the hands of Ludwig, and even though Bernd Schneider pulled up a great fight in Singen, and again in the first race of Nürburgring, and no, I don't know why was there 3 races on Nürburgring, this time just on the new course, he has shown a great potential for the future champion. The last 12th race was secured by another double victory for Klaus Ludwig, and even though the whole championship was obviously affected by Audi's cheating, but even when Audi was still active in the championship, Mercedes with their underrated E190 pulled a dominant season with a car that has seen the absolute start of DTM, usually in the early days hidden behind the faster E30s. However, they still managed to scrape absolutely everything for securing the first driver title and just the second in Constructor Championship. Just a year later will Alfa Romeo bring their V6s into the game, which will absolutely change the DTM forever. But the 92 season of DTM will always be remembered as a last and proper season of a Group A rules, which became legendary for creating one of the most competitive racing series of all time. They created a stories of incredibly close racing events, and even though they were not somehow revolutionary or budget friendly for new contenders, they managed to bring that moment of surprise. And by the way, if you want to buy one of the Mercedes E190s Evo 2 or M3's Evo 2 in perfect condition now, and I think that says everything. Thank you so much for watching and have a nice day. Bye.